Victoria Sterling's merger call was crashing. No interpreters. Billion-dollar deal dying. Jerome Washington reached over to mute the radio, trying to help. Victoria's head snapped around like a viper. "Keep your monkey hands off my car." The words hit the air like a slap. Jerome's hand froze mid-reach. "You think because you drive my Mercedes, you get to touch my things?" Her voice dripped with poison. "You're the help. Stay in your lane." Jerome's jaw clenched. His eyes stayed locked on the road ahead. "Matter of fact, put the partition up. I'm tired of seeing your face in my mirror." The glass barrier slid up between them with a soft hiss. Victoria returned to her panicked phone calls. In the front seat, Jerome gripped the wheel. 3 years of Stanford education, 5 languages mastered at Georgetown, 2 decades of diplomatic service. Invisible. What Victoria didn't know? Her monkey was about to save her empire. The partition couldn't block the chaos erupting behind it. "What do you mean all 3 interpreter services are booked?" Victoria's voice cracked with desperation. "Richard, this is a $1,200 million deal." Jerome watched her in the rearview camera, pacing in the back seat like a caged animal. Her perfectly styled hair was coming undone. Mascara smudged under her eyes. "I don't care if it costs $50,000. Find someone who speaks Japanese and Mandarin," she was shouting now. "The Nakamura Singh team lands in 90 minutes. Another call, another dead end. "No, we cannot postpone," Victoria hissed into her phone. "They'll walk away permanently. 3 years of negotiations down the drain." Jerome had heard enough boardroom conversations to know the truth. Sterling Dynamics was 3 months from bankruptcy. This merger wasn't just business, it was survival. 200 jobs hung in the balance, including his own. Victoria's next call went to voicemail, then another. Her hands were shaking as she dialed. That's when Jerome made his choice. He lowered the partition. "Excuse me, Ms. Sterling." Victoria's head whipped around, fury blazing in her eyes. "I told you to—" "What languages do you need?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Victoria's mouth opened, then closed. Her phone call was forgotten. "I'm sorry, what?" Jerome's voice was calm, professional. "For your merger meeting, what languages do you need?" Victoria stared at him like he'd spoken in tongues. That's not your concern." "Japanese and Mandarin?" Jerome continued quietly. "Hindi? Korean?" Something in his tone made Victoria's breath catch. This wasn't the voice of a driver anymore. "You speak Japanese?" "Fluently, along with Mandarin, Hindi, Korean, Arabic, Portuguese, French, German, and Spanish." The car fell dead silent. Victoria's phone slipped from her hand. Victoria's world tilted sideways. "You're telling me you speak 9 languages?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Jerome nodded once. "Would you like me to demonstrate?" Before Victoria could answer, her phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach drop. Nakamura Singh Holdings. She stared at the phone like it might explode. "I can't. Without an interpreter." "May I?" Jerome's hand extended toward the partition opening. Victoria's pride warred with her desperation. The phone kept ringing. She handed it over. "Moshi Moshi Nakamura-san," Jerome answered, his voice transformed. Gone was the careful deference. In its place, confident, cultured authority. The voice on the other end responded in rapid Japanese. Jerome listened intently, occasionally nodding. "Hai, wakarimashita. Sterling-san wa ima junbi shite orimasu." Victoria watched his face in the mirror. His posture had changed completely. Shoulders back, jaw set with quiet confidence. This wasn't her driver anymore. Jerome switched seamlessly to Mandarin as another voice joined the call. Technical terms flowed from his lips like water. Patent licensing, intellectual property transfers, market penetration strategies. He was discussing her company's most sensitive information in languages she couldn't understand. "There's been a cultural misunderstanding," Jerome said to Victoria, covering the phone. "They're insulted by your previous communications. Your legal team used overly aggressive language in the preliminary contracts. Victoria's heart hammered. What kind of misunderstanding? The kind that kills deals, Jerome replied. They think you view them as subordinates, not partners. Back to Japanese, Jerome's tone became apologetic, respectful. He used phrases that seemed to have an immediate effect. The tension on the other end dissolved. What did you tell them? Victoria demanded. Sterling Dynamics deeply respects their family business legacy, that you've been personally studying Japanese business customs to show proper honor. Victoria's mouth fell open. But I haven't! You have now, Jerome said simply, then returned to the call. 20 minutes later, he handed the phone back. They're looking forward to meeting with you in person. The merger discussion is back on track. Victoria stared at the phone, then at Jerome's reflection. Who are you? Jerome pulled the Mercedes into Sterling Dynamics' parking garage. The familiar concrete walls had never felt so different. Someone who needed work 3 years ago, he said quietly, and someone who still believes in second chances. He parked in Victoria's reserved spot and turned off the engine. In the sudden silence, Victoria could hear her own heartbeat. Jerome? She used his name for the first time in 3 years. I need to know everything. He met her eyes in the mirror. For a moment, the partition between them felt like more than just glass. PhD in International Relations from Georgetown. Masters in Applied Linguistics from Harvard. 22 years as a senior diplomatic translator for the State Department. Each credential hit Victoria like a physical blow. I specialized in high-stakes multinational negotiations, G7 summits, trade agreements, crisis mediation. Jerome's voice carried no bitterness, just quiet fact. Budget cuts eliminated my position 3 years ago. I needed work immediately. Your mother's medical bills, Victoria said suddenly, remembering fragments of overheard phone calls. Cancer treatment, my daughter's medical school tuition. Jerome nodded. I applied for over 300 positions in my field, overqualified for most, too old for others. Victoria felt something cold settle in her stomach. So you became a driver. I became whatever I needed to be to survive. The parking garage's fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Victoria looked at her hands, still trembling from the phone call. Jerome, she started, then stopped. What could she possibly say? Ms. Sterling, your meeting is in 40 minutes. We should go upstairs. But neither of them moved. In the enclosed space of the Mercedes, 3 years of invisible service suddenly felt enormous. I've been listening to your business calls for 36 months, Jerome said softly. I know every deal, every crisis, every late-night panic about the company's future. Victoria's face flushed with shame. Why didn't you ever say something? Offer help? Jerome's laugh was gentle, not bitter. Would you have listened? The answer hung between them, unspoken but clear. Victoria's phone buzzed. Text from her assistant. Nakamura team early. Lobby now. They're here, she whispered. Jerome was already getting out of the car, moving around to open her door with the same professional courtesy he'd shown for 3 years. But everything had changed. As Victoria stepped out, she looked at Jerome, really looked at him, for the first time. Will you help me save my company? Jerome straightened his driver's uniform and nodded once. Let's go save your company, Ms. Sterling. The elevator climbed toward the executive floors in silence. Victoria stared at the numbers, her mind reeling. 22 years of diplomatic service, Georgetown PhD, Harvard Masters. She'd been paying a former State Department translator minimum wage to drive her to Starbucks. Jerome, she said quietly, tell me about before. The elevator hummed between floors. Jerome kept his eyes on the digital display. Embassy in Tokyo, 1998 to 2003. Trade negotiations that prevented a currency war. His voice was matter-of-fact, professional. Beijing assignment next. Helped draft the intellectual property frameworks that your company still uses today. Victoria's breath caught. Those frameworks had saved Sterling Dynamics millions in licensing fees. After that, Geneva, UN climate accords, then back to D.C. for cabinet-level briefings. Jerome paused. I translated for 3 presidents, Ms. Sterling, 2 Democrats, 1 Republican. The elevator stopped at the 15th floor. Neither moved to get out. What happened? Victoria asked. Budget Reconciliation Act, 2022. Foreign Service downsizing. Jerome's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. 20% staff reduction. Last hired, first fired. But your experience meant nothing against spreadsheet mathematics. Victoria felt sick. So you just started driving? I had 2 weeks to find income. Mom's oncology bills were due. Sarah's med school deposit couldn't wait. Jerome's voice never wavered, but Victoria caught the steel underneath. Pride doesn't pay for chemotherapy. The elevator doors opened, then closed again. I applied everywhere. Consulting firms said I was overqualified. Corporations said I was too specialized. Universities said I was too expensive. Jerome finally looked at her. Your company needed a driver. I needed a paycheck. For 3 years, Victoria whispered. For 3 years, he confirmed. Outside the elevator, Victoria's world was collapsing. Inside, she was learning about a man who'd held his world together with quiet dignity. Jerome, why didn't you ever fight back? Demand recognition? He smiled sadly. Ms. Sterling, I've negotiated with dictators and diplomats, but I've never met anyone more dangerous than a person who's already decided what you're worth. The words hit like a slap. Every morning, I chose to see this as temporary, Jerome continued. Every insult, every dismissal, every time you threw your briefcase at me like I was furniture, I chose to believe that someday someone would need what I actually know. Victoria's throat tightened. And today? Today, you need what I know. The elevator shuddered slightly as it waited. Jerome, I owe you. You owe me nothing except the chance to do what I'm trained for. His voice was firm now. Save your company. Save those jobs. That's what matters. Victoria nodded, not trusting her voice. The elevator doors opened to the executive floor. Jerome gestured for her to exit first, falling into step behind her exactly as he had 1,000 times before. But everything was different now. The executive floor buzzed with panic. Victoria's assistant Rebecca rushed toward them, her face pale. Victoria, thank God! The Nakamura advance team is in conference room A. They're asking about cultural protocols and nobody knows. It's handled, Victoria said firmly. Rebecca, meet Jerome Washington, our new interpreter consultant. Rebecca's eyes flicked to Jerome's driver uniform, then back to Victoria. I'm sorry, what? Mr. Washington will be handling all international communications for the merger. Rebecca lowered her voice. Victoria, he's your driver. He's a Georgetown PhD who speaks 9 languages, Victoria shot back. Any other concerns? The color drained from Rebecca's face. There is one small problem, Jerome interjected diplomatically. I should probably change before meeting the delegation. Victoria looked at his uniform for the first time with clear eyes. He was right. Rebecca, take Mr. Washington to the executive shop downstairs. Get him a proper suit. Navy blue conservative tie. She checked her watch. 20 minutes. But the advance team will wait. Victoria's voice carried new authority. Tell them we're reviewing final cultural considerations out of respect for their customs. Rebecca hesitated, clearly struggling with the situation. Now, Rebecca. As they headed toward the elevator, Victoria caught Jerome's arm. Are you ready for this? Jerome straightened his shoulders. Ms. Sterling, I've mediated disputes between nations. I think I can handle a business meeting. 15 minutes later, Jerome returned, transformed. The Navy suit fit perfectly, highlighting his natural dignity. Gone was any trace of the invisible driver. Better? He asked. Victoria nodded, speechless. The man before her commanded respect just by standing there. Conference room A, she said. Let's see what you can do. The advance team consisted of 3 Japanese executives and 1 translator. They stood when Victoria and Jerome entered, bowing formally. Jerome returned the bow with precise depth and duration, then spoke in flawless Japanese. The lead executive's eyes widened with surprise and pleasure. He responded enthusiastically, gesturing for everyone to sit. "What did you tell them?" Victoria whispered. "That Sterling Dynamics is honored by their presence and grateful for their patience with our cultural preparations." The meeting proceeded in 3 languages. Jerome seamlessly translated technical specifications between Japanese and English while clarifying legal terminology in Mandarin when the Chinese patents came up. But more than translation, he was conducting diplomacy. When the lead executive mentioned concerns about intellectual property protection, Jerome didn't just translate. He addressed the cultural context. "Tanaka-san expresses concern about long-term partnership stability," Jerome explained to Victoria. "In Japanese business culture, this isn't just about contracts. It's about family honor extending across generations." Jerome turned back to the executives, speaking in formal Japanese about Sterling Dynamics' commitment to lasting relationships, not just transactions. The transformation in the room was immediate. Formal politeness gave way to genuine warmth. "How did you know to say that?" Victoria asked during a brief break. "Because I spent 5 years in Tokyo learning what matters beyond the words," Jerome replied. "Business in Asia is always personal first." The advance team leader approached Jerome directly, speaking in rapid Japanese. Jerome listened intently, nodding. "He wants to know if you understand the gift exchange protocols for tomorrow's main meeting," Jerome translated. "He's concerned your team might inadvertently offend Nakamura-san." Victoria felt her stomach drop. "What protocols?" Jerome and the executive spoke quietly in Japanese for several minutes. Jerome took notes, asking detailed questions. "We need specific gifts," Jerome explained. "Not expensive, but meaningful. Items that show you've studied their company history and family values." "Can you handle that?" "I can handle that." As the advance team prepared to leave, the lead executive shook Jerome's hand with both of his, speaking in Japanese. Jerome bowed deeply in response. "What did he say?" Victoria asked after they'd gone. "He said, finally, Sterling Dynamics sends someone who understands respect." Victoria felt a mixture of pride and shame wash over her. "Jerome, about this morning in the car—" "Ms. Sterling," Jerome interrupted gently, "we have 16 hours to prepare for the most important meeting in your company's history. Personal apologies can wait." He was right, but Victoria couldn't shake the image of how she'd treated him just hours ago. "What do we need to do?" Jerome pulled out his notes. "Learn their names, their titles, their family businesses. Understand why this merger matters to them personally, not just financially. And the gifts? I have ideas, but first we need to call your legal team about those contract revisions." Victoria looked at Jerome with new eyes. This wasn't her driver anymore. This was her lifeline. "Lead the way, Mr. Washington." Victoria called an emergency board meeting. The conference room filled with Sterling Dynamics' senior leadership, their faces grim. "I want you to meet Jerome Washington, our lead interpreter for tomorrow's merger." Executive Vice President Marcus Hendricks spoke first. "Victoria, where's the professional service we hired?" "Unavailable. Mr. Washington will handle all translations." "And his credentials?" Chief Financial Officer David Carter leaned forward. "Georgetown Ph.D., Harvard Masters, 22 years State Department." Silence. Then Hendricks pressed harder. "Where did you find him?" Victoria felt the trap closing. "He's been with the company 3 years." "In what capacity?" The words stuck. "Operations." "Operations?" Hendricks's voice dripped with skepticism. "Victoria, this is a billion-dollar merger. We need verified professionals, not someone from the mailroom." Jerome sat quietly, face impassive. "He handled today's advance meeting flawlessly," Victoria said. "That's not the point." Hendricks used his patient, explaining to children tone. This is about appearances, credibility. Marketing Director Susan Walsh nodded. The Japanese expect a certain level of professionalism. We can't show up with someone who looks like... She stopped herself. Like what, Susan? The temperature dropped. Someone who looks the part, Hendricks said bluntly. Someone they'll take seriously. Are you questioning his qualifications? I'm questioning his suitability. We can't risk everything on someone we don't know. Jerome finally spoke, voice calm. Mr. Hendricks, what specific concerns do you have about Japanese protocols? Hendricks straightened uncomfortably. Cultural nuances, business etiquette, such as gift exchanges, proper bowing, seating arrangements. Ah, Jerome nodded. Ochugan summer protocols, correct ray angles for executives, and Zaseki positioning based on founding dates rather than revenue. Dead silence. Nakamura Family Business was established in 1952. Post-war reconstruction values. They'll expect gifts acknowledging their family's contribution to Japan's recovery, not expensive items suggesting we're buying influence. Hendricks's mouth opened. Singh Holdings follows British Indian traditions. Direct communication, minimal ceremony, absolute punctuality. Ms. Singh will interpret elaborate gift ceremonies as time-wasting. Jerome looked around calmly. The key is balancing both without offense. Nakamura gets the position of honor. Singh gets clear sightlines to documentation. The silence stretched. How do you know this? Hendricks whispered. I negotiated the 2019 Tokyo Trade Framework establishing current U.S.-Japanese protocols and mediated the Singh-Euro Bank dispute in 2020. 7 executives realized they'd questioned someone more qualified than all of them. Any other concerns about Mr. Washington's suitability? Victoria asked quietly. No one spoke. Good. Jerome, what do we need? As Jerome outlined strategy, Victoria watched the shift. Hendricks taking notes. Carter nodded. Walsh asking questions. But she also noticed what didn't change. The careful distance. Questions directed to her, not Jerome. Recognition wasn't acceptance. After the meeting, Hendricks approached privately. Where exactly has he been working for 3 years? Victoria met his eyes. Learning everything about our company, while we learned nothing about him. That evening, Jerome worked alone in the empty office. Victoria found him at 9 p.m., surrounded by documents, cultural research, and gift samples. You should go home, she said. Get some rest. Jerome looked up from his notes. Almost finished. Just reviewing the technical patents one more time. Victoria noticed the precision of his preparation. Color-coded files for each executive, cultural protocol checklists, even backup conversation topics. Jerome, this is beyond thorough. Ms. Sterling, in diplomacy we say, preparation prevents humiliation. He gestured to the research spread across the table. Did you know Mr. Nakamura's father was a Hiroshima survivor who rebuilt their family business from nothing? Victoria shook her head. That's why he values long-term partnerships over quick profits. His decision-making process honors his father's memory. Jerome pulled out another file. Ms. Singh lost her first company to a bad translation in a Mumbai court. She's hypersensitive to linguistic precision. How did you learn all this? 6 hours of research your regular interpreters wouldn't have done. Jerome's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Problem? Emergency call from our Mumbai branch office. IP theft concern. The regional director only speaks Hindi. Victoria's heart sank. We can't afford any complications tonight. Jerome was already answering. Namaste, Kumarji. Main Jerome bol raha hun. For 20 minutes, Jerome mediated a 3-way crisis. Victoria watched him switch between Hindi, English, and rapid-fire legal terminology, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone used to solving international emergencies. What was that about? Victoria asked when he hung up. The competitor tried to steal your Mumbai AI algorithms. Kumar caught them but needed immediate legal guidance in Hindi. It's handled. Victoria stared. You just solved that? Ms. Sterling, your company has been hemorrhaging value through communication gaps for years. Jerome pulled out a thick folder. I've been documenting every international issue I've overheard in the car. He opened the folder. Dozens of incidents, missed opportunities, cultural misunderstandings. The sole software licensing deal that fell through? Your translator used informal Korean with the CEO's father. Unforgivable insult. Victoria felt sick. The Berlin partnership that stalled? Your legal team sent contracts in American English. Germans interpret that as intellectual arrogance. Why didn't you ever say something? Jerome's smile was gentle. Would you have listened? Victoria's phone rang. Unknown international number. Don't answer that, she started, but Jerome was already reaching for it. Sterling Dynamics, Washington speaking. Guten Tag, Herr Müller. German flowed from Jerome's lips like water. The conversation lasted 10 minutes, ending with Jerome laughing warmly. Your Berlin partners, he explained to Victoria's shocked face. They want to restart negotiations. Heard about tomorrow's merger and realized they made a mistake walking away. That deal was worth $40 million, Victoria whispered. It still is. I scheduled a video call for next week. Victoria sank into a chair. How many opportunities have we lost? Jerome's expression softened. The past doesn't matter. Tomorrow does. He handed her a perfectly organized briefing book. Everything you need to know about every person in that room. Their histories, their triggers, their decision-making patterns. Jerome stood. Ms. Sterling, tomorrow we don't just save your company. We transform it. Victoria looked at the briefing book, then at Jerome. Who are you really? Someone who believes in second chances, Jerome said quietly. For companies. And for people. Victoria couldn't sleep. At midnight, she sat in her home office researching Jerome Washington. What she found made her hands shake. State Department commendations, diplomatic achievement awards, news articles praising his negotiation breakthroughs, a photo of him standing behind 3 presidents during international summits. Her driver had shaped global trade policy. The next morning, Victoria called the board into an emergency session before the merger meeting. Before we begin today, I need to address yesterday's concerns about Jerome Washington. The executives filed in, looking tense. Jerome wasn't with her. I spent last night researching his background. Victoria pulled up her laptop screen. Marcus, you questioned his credentials. A State Department citation appeared on the conference room monitor. Presidential commendation for preventing the 2018 U.S.-China trade war collapse. Hendricks shifted uncomfortably. David, you worried about his experience. Another document appeared. Lead negotiator for the Asian-Pacific Economic Framework, the foundation of our entire international business model. Chen looked pale. Susan, you questioned whether the Japanese would take him seriously. Victoria clicked again. Personal letter of recommendation from former Japanese Prime Minister Sato. Jerome mediated the 2020 Okinawa base agreements. Walsh stared at the screen. For 3 years, we've employed one of America's most accomplished diplomats. Victoria's voice carried quiet fury. And we used him to drive me to coffee meetings. The room was deadly silent. Jerome Washington doesn't work in our operations department, Victoria continued. He is our operations department, starting today. She clicked on a new document. I'm promoting him to Senior Vice President of International Relations. Salary, $180,000 plus equity. Reporting directly to me. Victoria, Hendricks started. I'm not finished. Victoria's voice cut through his objection. Jerome will also head our new Cultural Intelligence Division. Budget, $2 million annually. Staff, his choice. She closed the laptop. Any questions about Mr. Washington's qualifications? No one spoke. Good. Because he's about to save this company. 20 minutes later, Jerome entered the boardroom wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. Victoria noticed the immediate shift in posture around the table. Respectful attention replaced yesterday's skepticism. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victoria announced formally, "I present Jerome Washington, Senior Vice President of International Relations." She handed him a business card holder, his new cards printed overnight. Jerome accepted it with quiet dignity. "Thank you for this opportunity." "The opportunity is ours," Victoria replied, meaning every word. Chief Technology Officer Kim cleared his throat. "Mr. Washington, I owe you an apology." "No apology necessary," Jerome said gracefully, "but I appreciate the acknowledgement." One by one, the executives who'd questioned him yesterday offered their respect. Jerome accepted each gesture with professional grace. "Now," Victoria said, "let's go save our company." As they filed out, Hendricks approached Jerome privately. "Washington, I was wrong yesterday. Completely wrong." Jerome shook his hand firmly. "Marcus, we all make assumptions. What matters is what we do after we realize them." Victoria watched the exchange, feeling something she hadn't experienced in years. Pride in her leadership. "Ready, Mr. Vice President?" she asked Jerome. Jerome straightened his tie and smiled. "Ready, Ms. Sterling?" For the first time in 3 years, Jerome Washington walked into a business meeting as himself. The elevator to the executive conference room felt different this time. Victoria and Jerome stood side by side, equals now, but the weight of the coming meeting pressed down on both of them. "Jerome," Victoria said quietly, "I need you to know something." He looked at her reflection in the polished steel doors. "If this deal fails, Sterling Dynamics has maybe 3 months before bankruptcy." Her voice was barely above a whisper. 200 people lose their jobs, including yours." Jerome nodded slowly. "How long have you been carrying this alone?" 2 years? Maybe longer?" Victoria's hands trembled slightly. "I tell the board we're restructuring. I tell investors we're pivoting. But the truth is, we're dying." The elevator climbed silently through floors of bustling offices, people who had no idea their livelihoods hung on the next 2 hours. "Jerome, I have to ask you something personal." "Go ahead." "Why are you helping me? After everything, after how I treated you?" Jerome was quiet for a long moment. "Ms. Sterling, can I tell you about my daughter?" Victoria nodded. "Sarah's in her 2nd year at Johns Hopkins Medical School, pediatric oncology track." Jerome's voice carried quiet pride. "She wants to treat children with cancer because she watched her grandmother fight it." The elevator passed the 20th floor. 3 months ago, Sarah called me crying, said she might have to transfer to community college because of the cost. Jerome's jaw tightened. "I told her not to worry, that her father would figure it out." Victoria felt her throat close. "She doesn't know I've been driving instead of consulting. I think I'm taking a sabbatical to write a book." Jerome smiled sadly. "Every month I transfer money to her account and tell her it's from my research grant." "Jerome, yesterday morning, when you humiliated me in the car, I drove straight to a job interview. 3rd one this week." He looked directly at Victoria. "Marketing coordinator at a community college, $28,000 a year." Victoria's eyes filled. "I was going to take it. Tell Sarah to transfer, except that my career was over at 52. Jerome straightened his shoulders. "But then you needed help." The elevator slowed as it approached the executive floor. "Jerome, when this is over, when we save the company, if we save it." "When we save it," Victoria repeated firmly, "I want you to call your daughter. Tell her she's going to be the best pediatric oncologist in the country, and that her father made it possible." Jerome's eyes were bright. "And I want you to know that saving your company isn't just about the jobs or the money." "What's it about?" "Proving that talent exists everywhere, that worth isn't determined by job titles." Jerome met her eyes. That people like your daughter, and mine, grow up in a world where they're seen for who they really are. The elevator doors opened to reveal the conference room where their futures waited. Victoria extended her hand. Partners? Jerome shook it firmly. Partners. They walked toward the biggest meeting of their lives, no longer boss and employee, but two people fighting for the same dream. The Nakamura Singh Holdings delegation filled Sterling Dynamics' largest conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, but all eyes focused on the polished mahogany table where $1.2 billion hung in the balance. Mr. Hiroshi Nakamura, 73, sat with the quiet dignity of old Japanese business aristocracy. Ms. Priya Singh, sharp-eyed and direct, checked her tablet with military precision. Mr. Lee Carter, Chief Technology Officer, studied technical documents with laser focus. Victoria entered with Jerome at her side. The room fell silent. Jerome approached Mr. Nakamura first, bowing with perfect depth and duration. He spoke in formal Japanese, his voice carrying respectful authority. Nakamura's eyes widened with surprise and pleasure. He responded warmly, gesturing for everyone to be seated. "What did you tell him?" Victoria whispered. "That Sterling Dynamics is honored by his presence and grateful for the wisdom of his family's business legacy." The first hour proceeded smoothly. Jerome seamlessly translated technical specifications between 3 languages while managing cultural nuances that could derail everything. Then the crisis hit. Ms. Singh suddenly stopped mid-sentence, her face darkening. She spoke rapidly in Hindi to her assistant, then turned to the room. "I'm sorry, but we've discovered a serious problem." Victoria's blood ran cold. "Our Mumbai office just informed me that Sterling's IP protection protocols are insufficient for our standards." Singh's voice was nice. "We cannot proceed with a company that has such loose security measures." The room went dead silent. Victoria felt the deal slipping away. Jerome leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Singh, may I ask what specific security concerns your Mumbai office identified?" Singh's assistant whispered in her ear. She nodded curtly. "Unauthorized access to algorithmic frameworks. Potential competitor infiltration." Singh closed her folder with finality. "This is exactly why our last partnership failed." Victoria started to panic, but Jerome remained calm. "Ms. Singh, I believe there may be a misunderstanding." Jerome switched to Hindi, speaking directly to Singh's assistant. The young man's eyes widened. He responded rapidly in Hindi, his tone urgent. Jerome nodded, then addressed the room in English. "The security breach Ms. Singh referenced was resolved yesterday evening. Sterling's Mumbai team detected the intrusion attempt and implemented immediate countermeasures." He looked directly at Singh. "I personally coordinated the response with your regional director Kumarji. The attempted breach was unsuccessful, and we've identified the competitor responsible." Singh stared at Jerome. "You coordinated this?" "Sterling Dynamics' security protocols are actually more robust than your team realized. The fact that we detected and stopped the intrusion within hours demonstrates the strength of our systems." Jerome pulled out his phone, scrolling to a message thread. "With your permission, I can conference with Kumarji to confirm the resolution." Singh looked stunned. "You speak Hindi?" "Fluently, along with 8 other languages." Jerome's tone remained professional. "Shall I make the call?" Singh nodded slowly. The conference call with Mumbai lasted 20 minutes. Jerome mediated in 3 languages, walking everyone through the security response timeline. Kumar confirmed that Sterling's protective measures had actually exceeded Singh Holdings' own standards. When the call ended, Singh looked at Jerome with new respect. "Mr. Washington, your response time was impressive." "Ms. Singh, Sterling Dynamics takes partnership security very seriously, especially with organizations we hope to build generational relationships with." He had used the exact phrase that resonated with Singh's family business philosophy. But Mr. Nakamura raised another concern. He spoke quietly in Japanese, his tone grave. Jerome listened intently, then translated. Mr. Nakamura expresses concern about long-term cultural compatibility. He's asking whether Sterling truly understands the commitment required for a 50-year partnership. Victoria felt her heart sink. This was the deeper cultural issue Jerome had warned her about. Jerome responded in formal Japanese, his voice carrying deep respect. He spoke for several minutes, occasionally pausing to let his words settle. Nakamura's expression gradually softened. He asked a question in Japanese. Jerome smiled and responded with a story that made Nakamura laugh softly. "What just happened?" Victoria whispered. "I told him about my father's service in post-war reconstruction, how American and Japanese engineers worked together to rebuild both countries." Jerome's voice was quiet. "I shared that true partnerships honor the sacrifices of previous generations while building for future ones." Nakamura nodded and spoke again in Japanese. "He says his father would have respected that sentiment," Jerome translated, "and that Sterling Dynamics clearly understands the meaning of honor." But the biggest test was yet to come. Mr. Carter suddenly looked up from his technical documents, his face troubled. He spoke rapidly in Mandarin, pointing to specific clauses. "What's wrong?" Victoria asked. Jerome listened to Carter's concerns, his expression growing serious. "Mr. Carter has identified a potential patent conflict in the AI algorithms, something our legal teams missed." Victoria felt the room temperature drop. Patent disputes could kill the merger instantly. "He's saying the image recognition protocols overlap with existing Chinese patents held by Baidu," Jerome continued. "If true, it could expose both companies to massive litigation." Chen pulled up technical diagrams on his tablet, speaking urgently in Mandarin. Jerome studied the information, asking detailed questions in Mandarin. His technical knowledge surprised everyone in the room. "Mr. Carter, may I suggest a solution?" Jerome finally said. Chen nodded. "The protocols you're concerned about are actually an evolution of open-source frameworks that predate the Baidu patents." Jerome switched to Mandarin, explaining technical details that made Carter's eyes widen. "Sterling's algorithms use a completely different neural network architecture," Jerome continued in English for the room. "The similarity is superficial, not structural." He pulled out his own tablet, showing comparative code structures that proved his point. Chen studied the information intently, then smiled broadly. He spoke in Mandarin, bowing slightly to Jerome. "Mr. Carter says I understand the technology better than most programmers," Jerome translated, "and that he's satisfied with our IP protection." The room collectively exhaled. 3 hours later, the impossible had become reality. Sterling Dynamics and Nakamura Singh Holdings hereby agree to a 50-50 partnership valued at $1.2 billion. Mr. Nakamura's voice carried the weight of history. "Implementation begins immediately." The conference room erupted in quiet celebration. Handshakes, bows, and relieved smiles filled the space where tension had reigned for hours. But then something unprecedented happened. Mr. Nakamura stood slowly, commanding attention through presence alone. He addressed the room in careful English, his accent precise. "Before we proceed with celebrations, I must acknowledge someone who made this partnership possible." Every eye turned to follow his gaze toward Jerome. "This merger succeeded not because of favorable terms or financial projections, but because of Mr. Washington's exceptional diplomatic skill." The room fell completely silent. "In 40 years of international business across 23 countries, I have never encountered such cultural intelligence combined with technical expertise." Nakamura bowed formally to Jerome, the gesture carrying profound meaning. "You honor both our traditions and your own profession." Jerome stood and returned the bow with perfect depth and duration, his face reflecting quiet dignity. Ms. Singh rose next, her usual directness softened by genuine admiration. "Mr. Washington, we've engaged interpretation services across 6 continents. You are the finest cultural liaison we have ever encountered." She approached Jerome with her business card, presenting it with both hands in traditional Japanese style despite her Indian heritage. We would be deeply honored if you would consider consulting for our Mumbai operations. Jerome accepted the card with appropriate ceremony. The honor would be mine, Ms. Singh. Mr. Carter joined them, speaking in rapid Mandarin with obvious excitement. Jerome responded fluently, making Carter laugh and clap his hands together. What did he say? Victoria asked, mesmerized by the exchange. He offered me a position as their chief cultural officer for all Asian operations, Jerome translated with a slight smile. I told him I already have the perfect job. The room filled with warm laughter, the tension of hours melting away, but the most meaningful moment was yet to come. Mr. Nakamura approached Jerome carrying a small silk-wrapped package. His movements were ceremonial, reverent. In Japanese business culture, this gesture represents profound professional respect between equals. Jerome received the package with both hands, unwrapping it with careful attention to the silk cloth itself. Inside lay an antique business card case, clearly a family heirloom of significant age and beauty. This belonged to my father, who rebuilt our company after the war, Nakamura said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. He believed that respect transcends nationality, language, and circumstance. He would have wanted you to have this. Jerome's hands trembled slightly as he held the precious gift. He bowed deeply, holding the case against his heart. Nakamura-san, I am profoundly honored by this trust. The entire room watched this exchange in respectful silence, understanding they were witnessing something rare and beautiful. Victoria felt tears threatening. In 30 years of corporate leadership, she had never seen such genuine respect between professionals from different worlds. Mr. Washington, Ms. Singh interjected softly, we have one additional request, if you'll permit us. Jerome looked at her expectantly. Our annual Global Partners Conference convenes next month in Singapore. 500 executives from 37 countries. Singh paused meaningfully. Would you consider being our keynote speaker? The invitation hung in the air like a precious offering. Jerome glanced at Victoria. With Sterling Dynamics' permission, naturally, Singh added quickly, showing proper deference to his employer. Victoria smiled broadly. Mr. Washington makes his own decisions about speaking engagements. He's an executive now, not an employee. Jerome accepted graciously, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. As the delegation prepared to depart, each executive made personal contact with Jerome. Not merely business cards, but private phone numbers, personal email addresses, direct access to some of the most powerful business leaders in Asia. Mr. Washington, Nakamura said as they shook hands in farewell, you have my personal number now. Please use it whenever you need anything at all. When the elevators finally closed on the departing delegation, the Sterling Dynamics boardroom buzzed with electric energy. Marcus Hendricks approached Jerome first, his earlier skepticism completely transformed. Jerome, I owe you far more than an apology. I owe you my gratitude, my respect, and frankly, my job. His voice was humble. Without you, we'd all be updating our resumes tonight. One by one, the executives who had questioned Jerome's qualifications 24 hours earlier offered their personal admiration and professional respect. Chief Financial Officer David Carter shook Jerome's hand warmly. I've been in international business for 15 years. I've never seen anything like what you did there. Marketing Director Susan Walsh, who had worried about appearances, was nearly in tears. Jerome, I'm ashamed of what I said yesterday. You showed me what real professionalism looks like. But Victoria had saved the biggest surprise for last. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, calling for attention, before we open the champagne, I have one final announcement. She produced an official document from her briefcase, her hands steady despite the emotion in her voice. Effective immediately, Jerome Washington is promoted to Executive Vice President of Global Relations. Annual salary, $280,000 plus comprehensive equity package. Jerome's breath caught audibly. Additionally, Mr. Washington will oversee our new International Cultural Intelligence Division, with an annual budget of $8 million and authorization to hire a team of 20 specialists worldwide. The room erupted in sustained applause. But most importantly, Victoria continued, her voice growing thick with emotion, Mr. Washington will serve as my personal advisor on all matters involving human dignity, corporate culture, and the recognition of talent wherever it exists. She handed Jerome a leather portfolio. Your equity package makes you the third largest individual shareholder in Sterling Dynamics. You're not just an employee anymore, Jerome. You're the owner of this company. Jerome opened the portfolio with trembling hands, staring at documents that represented more financial security than he'd ever imagined. Ms. Sterling, I don't know what to say, he managed. Say you'll help me build a company that sees people the way you helped me see you, Victoria replied. Say you'll help me become the leader I should have been all along. Jerome nodded, unable to speak. The celebration continued for 2 hours. Champagne flowed. Phone calls were made to spouses and children. Plans were drawn for Jerome's new division. But the most meaningful moment came when Jerome stepped into Victoria's private office to make a personal call. Victoria watched through the glass wall as Jerome dialed his daughter. Sarah? It's Dad. Sweetheart, are you sitting down? She could see him crying and laughing simultaneously as he spoke. No, honey, you absolutely don't need to transfer schools. In fact, your father just became an executive vice president. Your medical school is fully funded, all 4 years. Focus on becoming the incredible doctor I know you'll be. When Jerome returned to the celebration, his eyes were bright with pure joy. How does it feel? Victoria asked quietly. Jerome looked around the room at his new colleagues, then at the city lights beginning to twinkle outside the windows. Like I remember who I really am, he said softly. Like I'm finally home. 6 months later, Jerome's corner office on the 32nd floor hummed with international activity. 3 monitors displayed live feeds from Singapore, Mumbai, and Berlin. His cultural intelligence division had prevented 4 diplomatic disasters and closed deals worth $400 million. Victoria often stopped by just to watch him work. The transformation still amazed her. Mr. Washington, his assistant announced, your daughter's calling. Jerome smiled and picked up. Hey, sweetheart, how's pediatric rotation treating you? Sarah's excited voice filled the room. Dad, I just got accepted for the summer research program at Children's Hospital. Full scholarship. That's my girl, Jerome said proudly. Your grandmother would be so proud. After hanging up, Jerome noticed Victoria in his doorway. Good news? She asked. The best. Sarah's becoming everything I hoped she would. Jerome gestured to his desk. Just like this company. On Jerome's desk sat his daily reminder, his old driver's license in a simple frame next to Mr. Nakamura's antique business card case. Any regrets about that morning in the car? Victoria asked. Jerome considered seriously. Not anymore. That moment brought us both to where we needed to be. Even after everything I said? Victoria, you gave me the greatest gift that day, the chance to prove that worth isn't measured by uniform or title. Victoria's phone buzzed. She smiled at the text. Speaking of talent, I just hired our new head of facilities, Maria Rodriguez. She mentioned having a law degree during her interview. Jerome raised an eyebrow. Formerly your driver? Formerly my driver, now our top legal officer. Victoria grinned. Funny how much you see when you actually look. That afternoon, a news alert flashed across Jerome's screen. Sterling Dynamics model transforms corporate culture nationwide. The article featured dozens of companies adopting their Hidden Talent Initiative. CEOs sharing stories of discovering PhDs working in mailrooms, former professors driving Ubers, displaced engineers cleaning offices. Jerome's phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Washington, this is David Kim from Samsung Electronics. We need your help. What can I do for you, Mr. Kim? Our night janitor just solved a coding problem our engineers couldn't crack. Turns out he's a former AI researcher from Seoul National University. Kim's voice was amazed. We heard about your story. How do we do this right? Jerome smiled. Start by apologizing, then start by listening. By evening, Jerome had fielded 12 similar calls. Victoria found him at 8 p.m., still taking calls from executives worldwide. The Jerome Washington Foundation is getting 500 applications daily, she reported. Displaced professionals, underemployed talent, people stuck in survival jobs. How many can we help? With our corporate partners? Maybe 2,000 this year. Jerome nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. Victoria, I want to tell you something. She sat down, recognizing his serious tone. This morning, I got a call from a mother in Detroit. Her son Marcus is a MIT graduate working at McDonald's because no one will hire him. Jerome's voice grew heavy. 3 years of applications, 0 interviews. Victoria felt her heart clench. She was crying, Victoria. Said she saw our story and wondered if there was hope for her boy. Jerome looked directly at her. That call reminded me why this matters. What did you tell her? I told her to send me his resume. Marcus starts in our Berlin office next month. Victoria smiled through tears. 1 person at a time. 1 person at a time, Jerome agreed. As they prepared to leave, Jerome turned to face the camera of the documentary crew that had been following their story. Right now, someone is serving your coffee who speaks 4 languages. Someone cleaning your office who has an engineering degree. Someone is driving your Uber who used to run international negotiations. His voice carried quiet authority. Tomorrow morning, when you interact with service workers, ask yourself, what talents am I not seeing? What potential am I dismissing? What story am I missing? Jerome stepped closer to the camera. Here's what I want you to do. Find 1 person this week whose job title doesn't match their potential. Really talk to them. Ask about their background, their dreams, their skills. Then do something about it. Make an introduction. Write a recommendation. Share their story. Small actions create big changes. Victoria joined him. We started the Jerome Washington Foundation to connect displaced talent with companies that need them. But the real change happens when you decide to see people differently. It happens when you choose to look past uniforms and job titles to the human being underneath. Jerome's voice grew stronger. Because talent doesn't wear designer suits. Brilliance doesn't need corner offices. Worth isn't measured by your paycheck. It's revealed by your character. He paused, letting the words settle. If this story touched you, share it. Tag someone who needs to hear it. Comment about a time you discovered hidden talent. Help us build a world where everyone gets seen for who they really are. Subscribe to Black Tales Stories if you believe everyone deserves a second chance. Like if you think talent exists everywhere. And remember, Jerome looked directly into the camera with quiet intensity. The person who could change your life might be sitting in the front seat.